GB News suspends 2 presenters in a misogyny row. And a 15-year-old girl has been stabbed to death while on her way to school in Croydon. And a judge has ruled Donald Trump committed fraud by lying about just how rich he really is. Joining us on the panel are JJ Anasiobi, James Max and Penny Smith. But first, to 24 hours of chaos at GB News after not one but 2 presenters were taken off air in a dramatic fashion. Dan Wootton has been suspended from the channel after fellow host Laurence Fox launched a vile tirade against a female journalist. The move came just hours after senior executives removed Laurence Fox in the wake of his foul-mouthed rant. The former actor sparked fury after lashing out at political reporter Ava-Santina on Dan Wootton tonight in this offensive clip.
We're past the watershed, so I can say this. Show me a single self-respecting man that would like to climb into bed with that woman, ever. Ever. We don't need these sort of feminist 4.0. They're pathetic and embarrassing. Who'd want to shag that?
Oh, Laurence. Well, look,
No. I think I know who's pathetic. Well, the channel says it's conducting an investigation into those comments, and earlier Ava told Piers Morgan Uncensored that GB News needed a slapdown.
This isn't really about me at all. I just so happened to be the person that they picked on that night and he went too far with. I think it wasn't a goal of mine to get them suspended from the programme. But look, I just think that network is out of hand and it really needed a bit of a slap down. And I'm sorry that it's happened the way it has, but I'm glad it's happened.
Well, I think Ava was being really brave there, but it will have affected her intensely. This was absolutely disgusting. And anybody who tries to say this is just free speech and Laurence Fox should be allowed to say whatever he wants, I'm sorry, free speech is not a pink ticket to be derogatory and abusive and really disgusting. And actually some of what he was saying, because it was a much longer conversation than we had time to show. He went on to say only an incel would want to shag, his word, would want to have sex with this woman because she's such an idiot, and called her little woman. Now, an incel, for those who don't know, is an involuntary celibate. And there is an underground ideology of these absolute weirdos and creeps which promotes violence against women. This is not just him being a bit cheeky about a woman. It's him, I think it's him inciting some sort of hatred towards her and possibly violence towards her. And this is a woman also who has recently, because she's experienced piles on against her, has recently had somebody convicted because they had made credible threats to her. So I just think words are powerful and can have really dramatic consequences. And this is not just somebody speaking out of turn.
Oh, it's not somebody just speaking out of turn. It's just foul. Why take it down? He's meant to be somewhat of a politician. Commentator,
politician,
TV presenter.
And, I mean, his vocabulary is this big. If he has to take it down to nobody wants to shag her. I mean, it's disgraceful, it's belittling, it's just... First of all, it's not true. She's a gorgeous-looking woman, and what's more, she's highly intelligent and a great journalist. And to have to be belittled by that... It's disgraceful, and words are very dangerous. It can incite people who are not very well at the moment and to do things. So it has the knock-on effect.
Yeah, and to have the Dan Wootton as well laughing along with it as well just kind of compounded the whole thing, which is why, of course, that he's been suspended as well.
It was like 2 bully boys.
It was 2 bully boys.
It was.
And I was just thinking that the trouble is, though, that if your kind of almost your raison d'être is to be controversial and you operate in an atmosphere where everybody is kind of going, yeah, tell it like it is, then there comes a point where you cross, where I would suggest that where people who are doing these things don't actually know that they've crossed the line. They really don't, because for them, that is actually what everybody's saying. So just say it out there, you know, put it out there. That's what they want to do.
With free speech, I think you're right, but I think with free speech comes responsibility.
But
when
that's hate speech.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's hate speech.
Absolutely, it's hate speech. And I think for Dan Wootton, the presenter, to, you know, not pick it out immediately, indicates that either editorially, because it's not just about the individual. you know, I've been fortunate enough to do plenty of hours of live broadcast, and you do know when something is either going off the rails or it's not right and you should speak up. But also, that's why you have production staff. It's not as if he's in the room on his own. There's plenty of other people, and they should have really been calling it out, which comes down to the editorial guidance that we've been given. I just wonder whether suspension is actually the right move. That, first of all, it took them a while to realise that Dan Wootton should have gone at the same time as Laurence Fox on this, because it's not just the comments that were made which are foul, it's also the reaction not holding to account. Free speech is about being held to account, and when it turns into hate speech, it's again held to account. But also, I wonder whether or not it's damaging for that brand. And frankly, they should have an editorial policy which is clear. And in my view, if I was in charge, I would have said, you've gone too far, it's the end.
Yeah.
Well, Dan Wootton has said that he laughed along because he was nervous and there was nervous laughter, which possibly, taken for his word, possibly that's possibly that's the case.
And he did apologise.
He did apologise a few times. But Laurence Fox has made a reputation for himself in recent years for saying controversial, crazy, outlandish things. What were people expecting him to go on there and say? Of course he's going to say something controversial and mad. But I'm surprised he got suspended for it, only because I've heard much worse things said on GB News, whether it's about asylum seekers being compared to cockroaches, whether it's Beverly Turner saying Russell Brand is a hero when the allegations came out. They've got a catalogue and a history of saying horrible things, and this is the thing that apparently is bad enough for them to suspend someone.
And actually, it was very interesting. After Laurence Fox was suspended, he then kept digging and threw Dan Wootton under the bus completely by disclosing on Twitter private conversations that he'd had with Dan Wootton after the show, when they had both laughed about it, seemingly with emojis and so on. But more damaging was a discussion, an email that had happened between the producers and Laurence Fox, where Laurence Fox had said that this was kind of what he was going to say. He hadn't used the word shagging, but he had said that he was going to say that he found her unattractive because of her views. And so that was sanctioned by the producers. I think it was also very interesting that Ava was saying earlier today that how it made her feel was that sense of, does every time you walk out of a room, are men still saying these kind of base things behind your back? You know, a lot of us, women and men, thought that those days were sort of behind us, where, you know, a woman will walk out the room and the first thing that a group of men might say is, oh, you know, I wouldn't want to give her one. That sort of comment. And that she was saying, actually, is that still the world we're living in? Because this is still what men are saying.
It isn't, but it's still prevalent in some places. I mean, look, I've worked in places where years ago there was quite a lot of that, and I find that kind of banter absolutely unacceptable, and a lot of workplaces have stamped it out, but not enough. There are still places where either a certain age group or a certain kind of behaviour still hasn't been stamped out. So I think, you know, there's a lesson to be learned from this, that kind of stuff, you know, if you want to pick somebody up on anything they say, fine. Go for it. That's what free speech is there for. It's not to you know, violate, if you like, somebody's personal space.
I disagree with James. Unfortunately, I think this is how a lot of men speak, to be honest.
Yeah,
Donald Trump said this kind of stuff on tape and got elected to be the most powerful man in the world. This is normal conversations that men will have all over the world, all over the country. It's not right, but it happens.
Yes, but I said that in some places.
Normally it's in private.
But I said in private.
Yes.
You know, and I said in some places it is still there. It has been stamped out in a lot of workplaces, but it hasn't been completely stamped out yet. So, you know, it is still a problem.
But JJ, you're telling me that your younger generation, it exists within the younger generation coming up now.
100%.
Not just
not just
old
your generation.
farts like those
no.
two.
No, thanks to someone like Andrew Tate, I think this behaviour is becoming much more prevalent now. It's becoming more popular again, unfortunately.
I think Andrew Tate, Andrew Tate is definitely. I mean, I was talking to a head teacher recently who was saying he is so worried about the influence that Andrew Tate is having on, particularly, funnily enough, on particularly the most popular boys, but
this is where we come back to the incels.
Yeah,
Exactly. Similar
they're saying the boys who are who have perhaps less success with sort of, you know, charming girls and everything else, that he has a powerful influence over them.
Yeah,
and he's very concerned about it.
It can be weaponised and it can be really dangerous.